Welcome back to another episode of our 2026 season previews. Sam, how you going tonight, man?
G'day, mate. Howdy, everyone. Hope you're all doing really well. Thank you for having me again. Yeah, no, I'm doing really well, mate. Keen to get stuck into episode 3.
Yes, and in episode 3, Sam, we are covering the Parramatta Eels, as you can see here on the template. Yes, the Eels. Look, 2025. Let's quickly just touch on how the Eels went in 2025. Sam, look, uh, Parramatta, they ended up finishing in 11th spot, and to me personally, the season didn't really get off to a really hot start. Look, it actually got off to a horrible start. Let's be real. As you can see there, 56-18 in round one against Melbourne. And you will see that they end up versing Melbourne in round one again this year. But then, yes, a heavy loss again to the Tigers the following week. So back-to-back really bad thumpings. And to be honest, Sam, it's not a great way to start your season already with your season over after one round.
It pretty much was, wasn't it? And that round one team list is so different to what ran out in round number 27. For example, Brendan Hands was at hooker. Ronnie Volkman was at halfback for Parramatta. So to be fair, they were struck down with a couple of key injuries to start the season, but and also they had a lot of youth in their team to start off with as well. But yeah, no, when you concede 50, kind of like the Roosters did in round one, you're no chance of winning the premiership. Just a quick drive by on East.
Yeah, like you say though, Sam, I think a big thing that you can sort of realize as you look throughout the whole season or the campaign from the Parramatta Eels in 2025 is I believe and you probably am of the same viewpoint, but they started to believe and started to trust Jason Riles and adapt to how he was going about it. If you think about it, players that were mainstays in the Parramatta teams of old under Brad Arthur were, the Sean Lanes, your Bryce Cartwrights, those type of guys barely featured at all this in 2025. And Riles knew what he was doing, and he absolutely brought in the players that he wanted to, gave those young players a really good crack. And as you can see throughout the whole, as the season transpired, it started to, the belief started to come and the results started to fall Parramatta's way there. There was a bad injury to Mitchell Moses as well, which sort of didn't help the whole campaign there for Parramatta. As you can see, he missed the first 6 rounds there, and of course he came back in round 7 against the Tigers after the early thumping, 32-6 in round 2 without him, and they responded. Moses put his old club to the sword there, 38 points to 22. But you can see here, look, not horrible, but they were getting some good results and probably losing some games that they should be losing probably, but only by small margins. Like you look at some of these games here, like Cronulla, they ended up finishing top 8. They were 28 points to 18 there, 18-10 against Penrith, 30-12, not horrible against the Bulldogs. But I think it's more just after the origin period sort of settled, did we see Parramatta really start to come to fruition? Basically, from that, basically after that, yes, they lost quite heavily in 19 and 20, but I thought that this was the period where they started to really flourish. And you see against the Broncos, they were able to beat the Premiers there in round 21, 22 points to 20 in a close affair. They only just went down to Melbourne 16 points to 10. Unfortunately for you and your mob, Sam, they took down the Cowboys 19-18. Then they went down to the Rabbitohs. But if you look at it, some of these games, like, look, they should have probably beaten like the Rabbitohs, for example. But and you look at these games against like the Brisbane, they shouldn't have they shouldn't have been in that game considering where they were on the ladder. They trounced the Roosters 30 points to 10. Again, sorry for the drive by Easts. Then they beat the Warriors as well, Warriors who were trying to secure a top 4 spot. And then they finished the season with an absolute banger, an absolute thrashing of the Newcastle Knights, 66 points to 10. And I don't know, Sam, but for me, that is that is the perfect stepping stone to end one season and continue into the next.
Oh, it certainly is, man. The midway part, I'd try to look at a fixture that I would say that may have been, even though they may not have won, that may have been the game where it's like, hey, that looks like something that Jason Riles has been trying to implement for 10 or so weeks now. And I got to say, even though it was an origin affected contest, I think the belief in Jason Riles really did begin with that upset victory, a famous upset victory against the Manly Sea Eagles on that Friday night in the month of May. That's round number 12. Believe that was the Joash Papali debut for him as well, who also scored a try on debut. I feel like, in my opinion anyway, even though they went on to lose a couple more games after the fact, I feel like that was the game where the belief started for Jason Riles and for the Parramatta Eels players themselves, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, and just to, I guess before we move on to the next talking point, Sam, I think just in 2025, with these young players that Riles gave an opportunity, there was some outstanding, the development of Isaiah Iongi, for example, played, a couple of games for Penrith in the top level, came to Parramatta, and he is just growing under Jason Riles, being outstanding. You look at someone, for example, like Josh Adokar as well has been outstanding. One of the older players in the group, he was outstanding. Look at Dean Hawkins. We will touch on, obviously the
Yes.
ins and outs, but someone like Dean Hawkins was absolutely amazing for Parramatta. Without Mitchell Moses, he really stood up and led Parramatta around the pack with Dylan Brown. Look, to be fair, look, Dylan Brown's a quality player, but he didn't really have the best season in 2025. To be honest, when he started to play better, so did Parramatta there at the back end once he got back to his familiar halves pairing there with Mitchell Moses. But he also missed a hell of a lot of time, Dylan Brown, after signing that deal with Newcastle, which we'll touch on shortly. But yeah, Riley Smith, for example, another young player, outstanding,
Yep.
coming through. You got Katoni Katoga as well. He was outstanding. Look, some of these players as well have really just come from nowhere, or not nowhere, but they were known, but are now very, very well known, and were honored at the end of the season with representative honors. Katoga there playing with Fiji at the end of last season, and Iongi playing for Tonga. I think those were the main two that really caught my eye. I guess Josh Papali'i was great as well for when he filled in. But I guess my summary of the 2025 season for Parramatta is that they discovered their direction of where they wanting to be heading in the next couple of years. They've got a good young side with good young players, and they're trying to build around those young players, especially with the likes of, Mitch Moses and Josh Adokar there as senior figures, as well as Junior Barlow, he was just outstanding.
That is the bloke that I really want to highlight. Junior Polo rediscovered his best form in about 3 seasons or so. I thought he was just exemplary. He led from the front brilliantly. His motor for such a big guy is enormous, and his ball handling skills is fantastic for such a big fella. I really think that whilst I absolutely do rap the Fox, I think Dean Hawkins did a really solid job at halfback. I got to say that the momentum that Parramatta created at times for themselves, it was inspired by an inspired Junior Polo.
Yeah, no, Junior Paulo was absolutely outstanding, and you saw that as well in the Pacific Champs as well. He was
Yeah.
outstanding for Samoa there, leading the pack. But I think the case in point, really, of this conversation is Parramatta are a completely different side when this man Mitchell Moses is playing for them. I think that is the case in point. If Mitchell Moses can stay fit and healthy, man, uh, just makes Parramatta such a better side. You can see there. He played 14 games last season. Parramatta need him to be playing at least like 20 out of the 20 whatever 7 rounds it is in the competition this season. So look, yeah, you just look at it. Mitchell Moses, he's the key. He is the key for Parramatta.
Yep.
I know they've got great players. Junior Barlow, Zach Lomax was great for the Eels in 2025 as well. But it's just
Yep.
Moses. His direction and leadership is just second to none. He's one of the, or he's up there with one of the best halves in the competition, and you could see how his impact is also uh, was very much missed as well for the New South Wales Blues in their campaign as well in Origin when he was unable to go. And look, no disrespect to Jerome Luai, but he just wasn't able to do the same things that Mitchell Moses was doing, even though he is a halfback and Nathan Cleary is a halfback. Just Moses, that running game, look, he's probably got the best kicking game, I think, in the competition, Mitchell Moses. It's outstanding. Cherry Evans is probably close, but I think as Cherry Evans gets a bit older, I think the length of Moses's boot, as well as the direction, I think probably takes over due to the length per kick as per over Cherry Evans.
Yeah, yeah, man. Mitch Moses is top three kickers in the contest, and we really discovered how much they needed Mitch Moses, New South Wales this year. Moses just, yeah, I can't believe how quickly and how important he is to not just Parramatta but to the New South Wales Blues as well. And as you said before, that Mitch Moses missed the first 5 to 6 games of the season. He then
First
strung
6.
about 6 together, and then he missed about 4 games in the month of June, July, thereabouts. And then his first game back, what do you know? Parramatta win, and I'm not having a drive-by on you, but it was the game he returned in against the Brisbane Broncos up at Suncorp, and Parramatta stole that one. But then the week after, they were competitive in the game up to their eyeballs against the Melbourne Storm because Moses was there.
16-10,
Snuck
yeah.
home. Yeah, snuck home against the Cowboys. You've rattled off the rest of the
Yeah.
fixture anyway, but no, it can't be understated that Mitch Moses, he is the key, as you've said. He is the key.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good summary of the Parramatta Eels' 2025 campaign. Look, as you can see there on the ladder of the 2025 season, ending up finishing in 11th spot there. I think that they'll be. We'll see what happens. I'll give my 2026 preview very shortly, or a bit later, with Sam. So that's something to look forward to. But let's look at the gains and losses. Now, I've just realized as I've done this, there is a loss that I'm missing, but we will touch on that and I will fix that up before we put the templates out for everyone to look at. So the losses, I think the first one, and it's probably the one that should be there, but it's just not there because of just the way it went about, is Zach Lomax is the one that I have not got there, but is not there at Parramatta. And look, there's a bit of a standoff going on at the moment between Lomax and Parramatta with his playing future, just due to the fact of that he looked like he was all going to R360 there, and then that's been delayed, and then he sort of uh, doesn't really know, in uncertainty at the moment. He's been linked to rugby union. Then there was talks about potentially fighting in the UFC or doing something like that. But now it's come back to recently in the last week or so, it's been really strong. And it's the media are telling us that from Zach Lomax's camp that he is very strongly wanting to play for the Melbourne Storm. We did touch on this as well in the Melbourne Storm podcast in episode 2 of our season preview. So if you haven't watched that, go and have a look at that. But huge loss, Sam. Huge loss, Zach Lomax. Let's not worry about, the contract, the way he's gone, and he hasn't honored his last 2 contracts. Let's just focus on the loss that it will be for Parramatta, and they're losing a representative winger that was probably the best winger in the competition, or close to it. There was some good performances there from Nwakani Tawase and others, but I thought consistency wise, Zach Lomax was outstanding every single game that he played, whether it be for Parramatta or New South Wales.
What a shame that we only got to see just a small bit between Mitch Moses and Zach Lomax as a duo for the Parramatta Eels, and we saw that in the game against the Brisbane Broncos. It is a shame. He was, for a time there, probably the best winger in the competition for a week or two, thereabouts, but he's a very talented human being, and I really hope he does come back to rugby league. It is a shame that he is chasing the dollars without going into too much detail there, but I do hope he returns to rugby league. He is a loss for Parramatta, no doubt,
100%.
but there's a couple of players underneath or just there with him in that squad that I think can paper over the cracks pretty efficiently.
Yeah, speaking of chasing the money, Sam, look, a man that's played for Parramatta his whole career, Dylan Brown, he got money that he just could not refuse.
Beautiful
And yes, beautiful segue indeed. A 10-year, $13 million contract with the Newcastle Knights. And that comes into play this season. But I just think of it as, look, as Dylan Brown's career as a whole in the Parramatta Eels, this is a really, really big loss. Yes, he hasn't been the best form or version of Dylan Brown the last few seasons, but look, if the Golden Boot was actually judged correctly on just the best player for the international period, Dylan Brown was absolutely bloody exceptional for the New Zealand Kiwis in the off season. And look, he was pretty good as well. I wouldn't go say he was as good as he was for the Kiwis for the Parramatta at the back end there, because there was obviously, look, the reason why he got taken out of Parramatta's team was due to them trying to build for this season and the future. But then a few injuries came Parramatta's way, and then we ended up seeing Dylan Brown playing in the centers for Parramatta. And then for me, it was just like, it's not the greatest way to end. And look, I feel for Parramatta fans because, look, if Dylan Brown leaves Parramatta, goes to Newcastle, within a week of moving into Newcastle, then flies to New Zealand camp, then plays like that, wowee. Like, if he can play like he did for the Kiwis, for the Knights, a team that absolutely struggled in 2025, yes, had a lot of injuries, Newcastle did, but wowee, like, it could be a really big loss for Parramatta. There is a gain that they do get for this one season that we'll touch on soon that could maybe minimize the blow. But look, we saw Josh Papali'i get shifted in there at 5'8" throughout the season, and I did not like that one bit. But what are your thoughts, Sam, on the loss of Dylan Brown?
I'm not too sure whether to spill me guts for now or for the Newcastle Knights podcast that will inevitably be coming over the coming weeks.
Just speak on it from a Parramatta aspect, and we'll touch on how big of a, what our thoughts are really for whether he's worth the money and the contract and whatnot in the Newcastle podcast.
I remember when he debuted, he was hailed as the next savior, as the next Peter Sterling. That is an enormous comment to make. It is enormous pressure to put on young Dylan Brown. And he was impressive from the get-go. And I think 2024, maybe 2024 is when his form did start to dip. And the Parramatta Eels, I think, what was it? It was they had one win after 7 weeks or 8 weeks or what have you, and there was a massive, awful loss against the Canberra Raiders up in Darwin earlier this year. And that game I watched particularly on the Parramatta Eels because they were coming off of a Golden Point victory, and I thought that they could have really challenged the Raiders. And I saw
50
Dylan
to
Brown in
12.
that game. Yeah, I saw Dylan Brown in that game, and then furthermore, as the months went by, he did get dropped. He did get reinstated because of those injuries, but also because he wanted to have a nice couple of weeks to farewell the Parramatta fans. And the Parramatta fans, I would urge them to be really patient, and that's a kick in the teeth because they've had to wait 30, 40 years for a premiership. But I can't wait to get into the youth and the train and trial list because Jason Riles, I think, is doing some serious underground work that might pay dividends over the next couple of years. Dylan Brown performing behind a Kiwis pack, behind a Newcastle pack, two completely different things. Behind this Parramatta pack, whilst inspired by Junior Polo and a smash mouth Hopgood, is no Kiwi pack as well. So if I'm a Parramatta fan, it's hard to say. I think I'm okay with him going. I think I'd be okay with him going, but to have this player that was built up to be a Peter Sterling-like figure that one day could very well deliver a premiership and nearly did in 2022, you're a bit bittersweet about everything about Dylan Brown, I'd say.
Yeah. The question I have though, Sam, is we will touch on this in the trade and trial and whatnot, but look, Dylan Brown, yes, he leaves, but then a man is coming in for a 1 year basically rental. Do you believe that is potentially to give, say, someone that we're going to touch on soon, or a Joash Papali'i, a bit more time? Especially for a Joash Papali'i, who I believe his best position is fullback. Some more time to work into that 6 jersey, or is it, there are plenty of good young halves as well that are coming through for Parramatta just to give them a bit more time? Is that going to, you know what I mean, like help Parramatta fans, ease into it and understand the direction that they're heading?
Yeah, there were a couple of times where Papali did play at 5'8", and yes, fullback is definitely his spot. He made a good fist of it, but with the incoming 1 year rental, it's definitely he's very young himself, and it is, I guess, to protect the younger players that are still playing in SG Ball and Jersey Flegg and even New South Wales Cup nowadays. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, let's continue through the losses. So Bryce Cartwright hung up the boots. So did Sean Lane. Look, yeah, especially the surprising one, Sean Lane there. That happened midway through last season, and a really tough way to go. He's a great player. Same with Bryce Cartwright. We thank them for the service that they gave the NRL. But yeah, and wish them all the best in their next journey after footy. Joe Offahengawi has gone over to the Lee Leopards. There's actually a few players that have gone over here to the Super League. Brendan Hands has gone to the Toulouse Olympic. And then they've also got Dean Hawkins that has gone to, I believe, the Jason Dimitri-led London Broncos. Wiramu Greg. Now, this is something that I saw the other day. I didn't mention it because I wanted to get your thoughts here. Wiramu Greg has gone back to North Queensland, to the Townsville Blackhawks. Could we see Wiramu potentially in a Cowboys jersey this season, potentially, Sam, if a few players go down, bro?
Well, I don't have my freaking top 30 list in front of me, mate, but he definitely improved when he was down there in Parramatta for sure. Yeah, got a bit of a loose screw, man, and plays really, really tough. So,
Yeah, I
like
actually really
support.
like Wiremu Greg. I actually would like to see more of him. So whether that be for the Cowboys or whatnot, it won't be unfortunately for the Parramatta Eels, who did, like you just touched on, Sam, get him down there from North Queensland, and then Matthew Hunter. You can see that has gone there down the bottom right hand corner, has gone to the Newcastle Knights there.
There is one more as well. Ryan Matterson also let go. And I think that he is going over to the Super League as well, man. But yeah, Ryan Madison has been a
I
part of
thought
the
Ryan,
woodwork.
I thought Ryan Madison's back.
Is
Because
he?
Ryan Madison, I'm pretty sure got
Well, that's good.
released from his Super League contract from the back end of last year, and he is still contracted with Parramatta for the 2026 season.
Okay. Well, okay. So July 2025, Ryan Madison
Yeah,
granted immediate release from Parramatta. Okay. Oh no. Well, I apologize then. I must have missed it then. So he's actually
no,
coming back next season, is he?
well, yeah. So he's technically,
Is he in
well,
and out,
whether
in
he's
and out?
coming back, technically he's got a contract for this season because they only let him go on loan over to the Super League, and then he was supposed to be for the duration of the rest of his contract. But I don't know if it was from his end or the club that he was at has released him and he's come back. So yes, I don't know if we'll see. I don't think we'll see Ryan Madison feature at all for Parramatta. That's a strong direction, like we've touched on multiple times in this podcast, that the Eels are heading in. And look, unless of substantial injuries for Parramatta, I don't think we'll see Ryan Madison at all. But that is the 2026 losses for the Parramatta Eels. Look, a couple of big ones there, but with the gains that they've got, as well as the development from some players that we saw in 2025. Yes, that is a long list of 8 players there that are leaving the Eels, but I think that they're in a good spot with these gains that they've received, as well as the development from some of those players that we've touched on already in 2025. So the big ones, the 3 lovely ins for the Parramatta Eels. They have Jack DeBellin. That was the very first one. That one was made known through the back end of, probably like halfway through last season. DeBellin said that he was leaving the Dragons, that he'd played his whole career for to head out west and play for the Parramatta Eels. So that will be an interesting one. Brian Kelly. Now, this one's the latest one, Brian Kelly. He has with this Lomax, they've got a bit of money to play with and wanted another outside back. And yeah, Brian Kelly, look, wasn't really. What's the Gold Coast were probably happy to keep him, but at the same time, I think they weren't going to step in his way if another or a better deal came his way in regards to sealing his future. I'm pretty sure he only had this season on the Gold Coast left on his contract. So, and it seems like Hene doesn't see him in his long-term goals for the Gold Coast Titans. So, yep, he's gone down to Parramatta. I think Brian Kelly's a very handy player. So a good pick up there for the Parramatta Eels. And then the last one, touched on it, Jonah Pezzett. He is going to be partnering Moses in the halves this season. Look, I will go into length about Jonah Pezzett, but I think he is a very classy young footballer that in his limited opportunities in the first grade, case and point last season at the back end of the regular season and finals, that Pezzett was able to come in and do a job for the Melbourne Storm. And I think he'll do an outstanding job for Parramatta this season. But boy, oh boy, like it's just so weird. I don't know. Like I like it for Parramatta for just this season, but like I don't know. Like I know I've got some Parramatta Eels mates of mine, and they just couldn't believe that it was just, it's like basically a 1-year loan, and he's there for one season and then he's off to the Broncos for on a long-term deal. So I really like it for 2026, and I understand, I sort of understand it a bit more now because of the players that are coming through that we're going to touch on shortly, and giving them a bit more time to really flourish, as well as if they go down that Josh Papali'i route, that or Papali, should I say, give him a bit more time to really get into how it you play the 5'8" position in NRL football, Sam.
Yes, mate. Yeah. There's so many different factors, or things that could have happened. Jason Riles could have just said, "We'll take you for 1 year, but I've got this plan for this young crop that are coming through. So using you would be beneficial for us to give this young talented crop a year or so to develop just a fraction more." It's and in saying that, then too, maybe Jonah Pezzett did want to stay, or wanted to be in New South Wales. I can't remember if he's a New South Wales or a Queenslander. I think he's a New South Welshman, if I'm
He's
not
New South
mistaken.
Welshman. He is a
Yeah.
New South Welshman, bro.
So maybe he did want to stay, but Jason Riles may have, said, "We'll take you in for a year, but I've got this plan." But
I
I'm
don't think it.
terribly.
I don't think it panned out at all like that, bro.
But it could be be
Yeah.
anything. We don't know. We really don't know why it is the 1 year deal. I mean, Pezzett could have also said, "Well, I'll hedge me bets and hope that either Renault or Hunt retires at the end of 2026."
That's
So
exactly it. That's
yeah,
exactly the reason is why he's gone somewhere else, in my opinion, is the
mm,
reason why he's gone to somewhere else. He's not getting a regular opportunity for the Melbourne Storm. He sat behind, we touched on this in the Melbourne Storm podcast in episode 2 of our season previews. Again, if you haven't, go and tune into that. But he's not getting a regular opportunity. He's behind Munster and Hughes there. I feel like the reason was why he didn't go straight to the Broncos is because of Reynolds and Hunt being there, contracted there for this season, that he needed somewhere to go. And look, Jason Riles had been at Melbourne before he went to Parramatta, or had spent some time in Melbourne in his coaching career before he got the head coach role for Parramatta. And I reckon it's just like, oh well, let's give 2026 a real red hot crack. I liked what I saw from my players at the back end of 2025. And let's go out there and try and do our best and try and win it all. Look, yes, it might be a bit bold, but let's try and win it all. Two quality half players. He also will be able to beautifully lead Parramatta around if Moses was to go down, or when he goes on Origin duty. We've seen Pezzett lead Melbourne around beautifully. So I can only think that it's just something to do with that connection there at the Melbourne Storm, Sam, and that
yep.
the Eels are just trying to go all in. They knew the Broncos deal. I think the Broncos deal was done before this Parramatta deal. They just needed a 1 year, a club to take him for one season, because he was sick of, tired of waiting behind Munster and Hughes at Melbourne. And for his development, I think this is the best case scenario for Jonah Pezzett. So we wish him all the best. But look, we've gone into that in great detail. So let's move on to the next topic, Sam, and that's the train and trial list. And wowee, it's a list and a half, a lot bigger than the ones that we've gone through. You can see all the players there. So the first one, yes, is the last name is very familiar, and it is Ryder Talangi. Now, I want to just touch on Ryder Talangi just quickly, because there was a real fight to keep Ryder Talangi at Parramatta. Penrith were really keen on getting Ryder, their rivals, the rivals of the Sydney's West. The Penrith Panthers were keen to reunite Ryder with his brother Blaze at the Penrith Panthers, but Jason Riles said, "Nah, Dad, that's not happening," and is promised Ryder Talangi, and basically promised, given his word, that we really want you here at Parramatta, and we see a future for you here at the Eels. And look, with the way that they're going with their talent, Sam, and playing this youth under Jason Riles,
Yep.
I see Ryder Talangi playing first grade very, very soon. Look, 2023 under 16 Eels captain, Australian schoolboy in 2024, debuted in New South Wales Cup in 25 and played 5 games. The world's the oyster for Ryder Talangi, Sam, and I'd see him playing first grade very soon. I'll go through them all, and then you can give your thoughts and whatnot on the list. But look, again, like Melbourne, a lot of players in the Parramatta junior systems, whether it be Jersey Flegg, New South Wales Cup, all those sort of players, all staying around here. They're not gone from other clubs or whatnot. They've sort of kept the Parramatta locals really. Lincoln Fletcher, good halfback. Sam, 2024 schoolboy. Lachlan Koinakis, a hooker. Again, another 2024 schoolboy. Josiah Funa Iota, I think it is. He was a second rower, under 19 State of Origin rep last year, and debuted in New South Wales Cup as well last year. Then you got Saxon Pryke, who's a lock second rower. He's won Parramatta's best player in 2 different divisions. Then we've got Lorenzo Talatina, that's a half, a very talented ball running half. Sam will join the Eels development roster for this season and the next, before moving into the top 30 squad in 2028. Again, potentially one of those players that could be fast tracked even a bit before that 2028 top 30 squad. And he was also the 2025 SG player of the year. Then we've got William Latu, who's a second rower. Teacom Brown, that's a prop. Appa Twiddle, that is a halfback. And then Muhammad Al-Madeen, who is a winger. And Muhammad Al-Madeen has got glowing praise from Josh Adokar as a really good talent coming through Parramatta's ranks there. And with the departure of Lomax, yes, there's some, the Samranis, the Simonsons there in the road that could, halt his progress. But from what I'm hearing, look, Muhammad could be into Eels action within the next, NRL level within the next few years, potentially, Sam, if he continues with that same trajectory. What are your
Yep.
thoughts, man?
I think this is, even though I've not seen a second of them in action. I think this is a really exciting train and trial list, and I think this is the reason why Parramatta Eels fans should just be a fraction more patient, because this Ryder Talangi looks like a human skyscraper from the couple of photos that I've seen of him. But what's interesting is that all these men are all Jason Riles. The moment that Jason Riles got hired by Parramatta in November, one of the first things he did was sign a couple of these young men to these long-term contracts that some end not until 2027, even 2028. And then a year later, they announced a really exciting signing, a trio of signings: Talangi, Fletcher, and Koinakis. That is a massive prop. One of them is a hooker, and the other one, if I'm not mistaken, is a halfback. And then you have Mr. Funa Lutu, and he's obviously debuted in State of Origin earlier this year. He has recognized the talent that was there, that did so well in the SG ball in 2025. And these players have had lots of success over the past few years that did culminate in last year. So it was Mr. Talatena that was the 2025 SG Ball Player of the Year. So there is some serious talent here that Riles has been very quick, very astute to recognize and to lock up for the next few years. This is really, really exciting, and it might even get me to buy a New South Wales TV Rugby League subscription, so I'll watch some New South Wales Rugby League, mate, just for some of the names that are on that list, man.
Yeah, very, very exciting times for Parramatta with a really good youth coming through. Yes, it might not happen, this year in 2026. But I think what you're alluding to, and that speaks volumes of Jason Riles' building, and we're seeing that development happen through just in last season in 2025.
I do agree with you. I would not be surprised if maybe halfway through the year during Origin or even in the final couple of rounds of 2026 that we actually do see the debut of Ryder Talangi. Obviously, that's if his form warrants it. But yeah, I've got a feeling that we might actually see Talangi later on this year.
But like you said, Sam, like these players, some of them have just had a small portion of New South Wales Cup. So I think that these players are going to be, yes, they got a small portion last season, but they're going to get a big portion this season, and then
Mhm.
potentially be flirting with that NRL spot. So, and like you said, potentially depending on what happens, some of these guys might get their opportunity at the back end of the year. So we wish them all the best, and a hell of a list from the Parramatta Eels training trial list. All right, let's get to the nitty gritty. It's the 2026 Parramatta Eels draw review, Sam.
Mhm.
I will continue with how I have done these the last few for the last few episodes. So, look, let's touch on the Eels draw. Look, they have an absolutely diabolical start to the season, versing both the grand finalists in round 1 and round 2. But then the Eels have 5 straight games at CommBank, considering that Penrith still call CommBank their home. So they have 5 straight games at CommBank. So that, I guess, is a positive. And against, look, in that 5-game stretch, there's probably 2 games, if you look at 2025 records with the Dogs and Penrith, that formidable sides that you obviously can do a job or are going to be tougher fixtures, but there are some easier ones there as well if we look at last season's results. But it is 2026, a completely different year, and you can't judge a book from how it looks in 2025. We need to see what it looks like in 2026. And look, actually, as well, they don't after that 5-game stretch, if you look at it and expand it a bit more, they don't actually leave Sydney until the Cowboys in round 10. So they've got round 3 to round 9 in Sydney, and then they venture finally out of New South Wales up to North Queensland. Oh, dearie me, what a definite spike in temperature change it will be for Parramatta after such a long period of playing in New South Wales. Look, in total, Sam, they only leave New South Wales 5 times for the
Bloody
whole
hell.
season. So, look, and there is no New Zealand trip as well for the Eels. Their last bye in round 20. Parramatta only play 2 top 8 teams from last season, which is the Penrith Panthers in round 21 and the Sharks in round 26 in their final 6 games. So a pretty good look, a horrible start to the season. Looks
Yeah.
like pretty good, not like a very good period after that, up until, round 10 and then magic round when they have to verse the Storm again in the first 11 weeks of the season. But a good finish. I'm liking the finish there for Parramatta, especially, some good games there, playing at home. Look, yeah, for me, it's a pretty good finish to the year, man.
Yeah, the run to the finals always starts in round number 20, and that starts off with a bye, and they only leave Sydney once in that final run to the finals, and that's a Friday night game up against the Dolphins up at Suncorp. Some of the opposition there, as you mentioned, in Penrith, Cronulla, Dolphins at Suncorp will be tricky, Cowboys, God willing. So I guess looking a little bit deeper into it, I think it's a little bit harder than what you're saying. I
I'm not
think
saying it's an easy draw. I'm just saying like
no,
the back end of it's a good finish. I think it's a
yeah,
pretty
it's not
tough
bad.
draw.
Yeah, South Sydney, Cowboys, Dolphins, Sharks, and then Dragons, who bloody knows. So yeah, no, I that's probably the nicest. It's not easy, but it's definitely the nicest run to the finals that I've seen so far.
I think if you look at like the verdict, like you were just talking about here, is the draw. Part of me, as an overall, Sam, is in 2025, like we discussed earlier, the Parramatta Eels started very poorly. They lost their first 4 games on the trot. This season is starting very tough as well, especially the
Yeah,
first 2 weeks, as I alluded to before. So whether they lose those 2, if they could grab one of those 2, that would be massive, with the
huge.
run that we just touched on before. But I think it's critical for Parramatta with that good end of the season that they try to start the season better than they did in 2025. And I wholeheartedly can say, well, unless something really goes amiss, that they should surely start the season a lot better than what they did in 2025 due to the stability and the growth that we saw from Jason Riles and the Parramatta Eels in the 2025 season, with that really strong end of the season, that thrashing of Newcastle 66-10, I believe it was. So that was massive. The buys in the middle of the season as well, that also helps. So you can see buys in round 12, 16, and 20. So that's pretty close together and all around that origin time. So that's pretty handy as well for Parramatta. And yeah, look, they've finished the season last year with 3 straight wins. So if they finish the season well, who knows, if they perform well at the start and throughout the middle, they could be pushing for a top 8 spot, Sam, with that good run home. And if they, as I said just before, if they can finish like they did in 2025 to 2026, Moses stays healthy, they get some wins to start the season and produce throughout the middle part of the season through that
Yep.
origin period. Wowee, Sam, we could see the Eels pushing for a top 8 spot.
Yeah, but it all starts in round 1, and that opening 5 fixtures, mate. I look, Parramatta.
There's
There's a
3 good
world
ones
where
there.
I feel like
Or
that there
3
is
tough ones,
definitely
should I
a
say. 2
world
good
where they
ones.
could be 0-5. To be honest with you, but yeah, no, that's a very deadly. That's a deadly start to the season.
I
That's
like
so
what I see
dangerous,
from
man.
Parramatta. I reckon they can
I
at least
do.
win 2 of those 5. I'm not saying 0 from 5, but there is a chance, like you said, Sam, that there could be a 0 and 5. It's not the easiest of starts. But look, let's move on. All right. The teams that Parramatta play twice, Sam: the Bulldogs, the Cowboys, the Dragons, the Panthers, the Rabbitohs, the Sea Eagles, the Storm, and the Tigers. To be honest, of the 3 teams, this is now the third. That's definitely the best list of play twice teams that we've covered
Agreed.
thus far.
Yep.
Look, the Bulldogs, Panthers, and Storm are basically the ones that were the big fish from last season. We're definitely going to see some of those other teams improve in 2026. Well, I would hope so. But yes, a pretty good list for teams that they play twice. The teams that they play once: the Broncos, the Dolphins, the Knights, the Raiders, the Roosters, the Sharks, the Titans, and the Warriors. Look, that list is not as nice as the played twice list, but it's not horrendous, not too bad at all. We discussed their buys in round 12, 16, and 20. All right. If we look back to 2025, where teams finished the season last year. So the games that the Eels play against the 2025 top 8, they play 11 games against the 2025 top 8. They play 6 against the top 4. They play 13 games against the bottom 9 teams from 2025, and they play 6 games against the bottom 4. I'm looking at that. That is better than the Storm, and that is that is not better than the bottom. What do I say? Bottom 4. So 6 for Parramatta. Bottom 4, 6. That's one better than. Look, it's not the best. It's not the best, but one thing that we can touch on, Sam, is they have one 5-day turnaround which is the exact same. It seems like every club's going to have one 5-day turnaround because the three that we've touched on thus far have had a 1 5-day turnaround. They've got 7 6-day turnarounds, Sam, which is one less than Melbourne and the exact same, I believe, as, yes, the Brisbane Broncos. But like we just touched on, Sam, they're staying in Sydney a lot, the Parramatta Eels. So that is huge, especially with those turnarounds. They have 15 7+ day turnarounds, which is one more than the Storm and the exact same as the Brisbane Broncos. So I know, Sam, you don't want to give a grading. I'll get your a grading, should I say? I'll get your final thoughts in due course. But for me, my final grade is I actually have the Broncos thus far with the best draw of these three teams that we've discussed. I then have the Parramatta Eels. I have them at a B minus. I had the Broncos at a B plus. And I had the Storm at I believe it was, yes, a C, a pass. So I think that the Eels draw is slightly better than Melbourne's. Not as good as Brisbane's, but look, at the moment, it's middle of the pack, Sam.
Yeah, no, I have nothing else to add on to that, mate. I completely agree.
All right, let's continue moving, Sam. All right, it's team list time. And Sam has not seen my team, so I'm going to get straight into it. As you can see, a lovely photo of the halves partnership there, as we've got Isaiah Iongi at fullback. I've got Bailey Simonson. Look, there was a bit of a fallout with Simonson and Jason Riles throughout the season there, but they managed to sort of turn it around there at the back end. And from what I'm hearing, Simonson is looking like a really good chance to start on the wing. And I think Simonson, every time he's played for the Eels and in NRL level, has always done a job. And I expect him to do the same. Josh Addo-Carr, look, yes, he's getting older, but wow, oh, wow, he was just incredible. A pillar of strength and consistency for Parramatta throughout the 2025 campaign. And look, after all that had happened, to see Josh Addo-Carr be playing in the Ashes over in the Kangaroos tour, I think speaks volumes of his 2025 Parramatta Eels campaign. Will Penasini, look, he's been outstanding. And Brian Kelly, the new signing in the centers for me. Look, the two people that are pictured there on screen, Pezzett and Moses, are the halves. Now, look, this forward pack, I'll go through it and then I'll explain a few things that I think could change. I've got Hopgood and Paulo. I thought Hopgood finished the season really well. He had a bit of an up and down season, or a pretty average season, to be honest, throughout 3/4 of the start of the 2025 season. But just like Parramatta's form at the back end, Hopgood was back to his best at the back end of that campaign there. So I've got him and look, the ever so reliable Junior Barlow, who, yes, was, like Sam said, a great 2025 campaign for club and international level. Riley Smith, a great hooker, only going to be getting better. He's my starting hooker. I've got Jack Williams, who is absolutely great for Parramatta. A huge signing to get Jack Williams from Cronulla to Parramatta. And look, with the more football that Jack Williams played this season, he was outstanding. One of Parramatta's best, in my opinion, in 2025. He's a lock for me in the starting team. He's definitely got to be there somewhere. Katoni Katoga, or Kitioni Katoga, should I say, is the other second rower. He was outstanding for Parramatta last season. I've got him there with Jack Williams. They were both great and a good back row partnership there for the Eels. I've got new signing Jack de Belin at lock. Now, that could change. Jack de Belin could play prop and they could play Hopgood at lock. But for me, that's how I think it's going to start, with de Belin at lock. De Belin's basically played most of his Dragons career, if not all, at lock, or coming off the bench. So I think, yeah, de Belin looking in great shape. I think he is the starting lock. De Silva, the man they got from the Tigers, he will be the 14. Didn't have the greatest campaign there for the Eels. in the back end, but he's definitely shown that he is a very talented young player, and look, a very formidable hooker partnership there, very youthful and formidable, like I said, hooker partnership there with De Silva at 14. I've got Dylan Walker, very reliable, can fill in the back line if required, as well as also in his preferred position these days of lock, and he was outstanding as well. Coming across from the Warriors, he was outstanding. Dylan Brown for the Parramatta Eels, especially at that back end period. Now, look, the Eels are missing a big body. So Tuivasa for me, Sam Tuivasa is there on the bench. He was great in 2025 in his handful of performances. So I think he is going to take a step, and he'll be there on the bench to provide, a big body, because, you've already got Hopgood playing prop. I feel like you need a big body there on the bench. Now, it was really hard for me to try and pick the last spot, but I thought that before he had the suspension, I thought Kalma Tuolangi was he was really good for Parramatta. So I've got him there in jersey 17 with that lovely bright blue headgear coming off the bench. That will be outstanding there to provide some impact for the Eels. I've got Josh Papali'i there with that versatility in jersey 18. Look, Charlie Geimer was great at the in 2025 for the Eels. Just couldn't fit him in, unfortunately. Went with probably Kelmer over him, Geimer, and the other man, Jordan Samrani. But I would not be surprised if Samrani, with his versatility as well, he can take that Lomax spot from Simonson on the wing, or he can play in the back row. So I think we will see some Samrani and Geimer throughout the season. But that is my top 20 for the Eels' round one game against the Storm, Sam.
Alrighty, so I clearly go against you. So I've got Iongi, of course, at fullback. I have Jordan Samrani on the wing, and I want to start to talk about Brian Kelly now. So Brian Kelly from the Gold Coast Titans, I do think he is a talent, but I just don't. I haven't been a fan of his work over the past couple of seasons as the years have gone by. What the big change is here for me is Sean Russell. He wasn't in your team just then, Dor, and he's not, unfortunately, in my team either. And that sucks, because I thought the combination of Sean Russell and Josh Adokar was striking at times throughout 2025. I hate to break that up, and I hate to sort of say that, well, if Sean Russell's going to Perth in 2027, then maybe he can do some things in New South Wales Cup, because he's a much better player. He's a much better player than New South Wales Cup level. I think he's going to be fantastic for Perth Bears, but I digress. So I popped in Sam Rani, and I did consider Bailey Simonson, and looked at young Jake Tungo as well. I like the idea of having a big body winger standing next to Will Penasini. So if you want to step Will Penasini, here comes Jordan Samrani like a freight train, or the other way, Will Penasini coming at you like a friggin' brick shithouse. So I've gone Iongi, Samrani, and Penasini, and Kelly and Adokar. You're not going to buy Brian Kelly. You're not going to get Brian Kelly to come down and then play New South Wales Cup for a month or so. Maybe Jason Ryles wants him to go through the hard yards, but that's not what you're going to be doing with Brian Kelly. The idea of a Kelly Adokar partnership instead of a Russell Adokar partnership does sound a little bit more juicy. I think Kelly could be unlocked because of Josh Adokar in 2026. So Kelly could be pretty handy. Obviously, Pezzett and Moses are my halves. The same front rowers for me as they were for you, Dor, in Hopgood, Smith, and Polo, and just a slight tweak in the back row. Jack Williams and Kartoga as second rowers, but then at lock, Dylan Walker, and I toed and froed with either DeBellin or Dylan Walker to start at lock. And I looked at the last 5 weeks or so of the 2025 season, and Dylan Walker started at lock. And I get you didn't have DeBellin last year, but I would prefer to have Parramatta blitz the opposition players fast and chuck it from west to east as quickly as humanly possible with the Dylan Walker out there. And then you bring Jack de Belin on to bring some sting, a bigger body on, who can still pass the ball, but obviously not to the tune or same volume as Dylan Walker. Yeah, so I would prefer to have Parramatta blitz, and then Jack de Belin comes on and just sort of steals the ship a little bit defensively and what have you. Then you've got Talon De Silva, Jack de Belin in jersey 15 for me. Charlie Geimer, I really got around the work of, but Matt Dury, I think he was a little bit underappreciated. I think he actually was underappreciated in 2025. He just came on and had no nonsense. He may have had an error or two, but that was throughout the entire year. I thought he was pretty safe. I thought he was pretty well disciplined, and I thought he worked his ass off, to be honest with you. So I'd keep Matt Dury in there. Kelma Tuolangi, I've skipped over one, but Kelma Tuolangi in jersey 19. I don't know, man. Between the suspensions and the injuries and what have you, and he's off contract at the end of 2026. I don't know, man. I feel like I want to stay away from Kelma Tuolangi, to be perfectly honest with you. Maybe he might find better form. Might be better at.
Baby.
That's true. That's true. Touche. And Sam Tuivasa as well, who is also a mammoth human being, but I think we will see him throughout the year. But I've got him and as jersey number 20. Dor, I think this is as good a time as any. Speaking of players that are off contract, I'm pretty certain that Joash Papali is off contract at the end of 2026, man. I think he's free to negotiate, if I'm not mistaken. Confirm that for us, mate.
I will.
Well, in any event, have a peek. But in any event, man, Parramatta, we got to find a spot for this bloke because he's too talented to be left to be playing in New South Wales Cup, man. But there's nowhere for him, and that's why the acquisition of Brian Kelly was such a head scratcher, I suppose, for me, man. Because at least you could have used Papali on the wing, but I don't think you like that idea. I don't think a lot of people would. But you got to find a spot for this.
He's signed for 27.
So he's a free agent.
He's signed till 2027, so he's contracted for this year.
Yep.
And the next season. But yes, he can negotiate to go where he wants to at the end of this season. Geimer, Junior Barlow, Will Penasini, Kelma, like you said, and Dylan Walker, they're all off contract at the end of this season.
So Dor, what are you doing with Joash Papali, mate? I got no friggin' idea, but it's such a sensitive situation, in my opinion, because Parramatta can't afford to let him go, and they won't. But he's got to get some first grade this year. But at the moment, I don't know how he gets in. At the moment, he will play, but I don't know how he gets in.
Injuries or origin, I guess. Right, let's move on. Let's continue moving nice and in a nice forward direction after that little hold up, should I say, from my behalf with my computer crashing. But that is absolutely all right. Let's move on. We've got the Eels here. My breakout player for 2026 for Parramatta. Look, yes, we all know that he's the big signing, but look, this man, as you can see, has played very little first grade, very similar to my far longo take in the last episode, the Melbourne Storm season preview for 2026. Jonah Pezzett, I think, is going to have an absolutely outstanding season for the Parramatta Eels this season. You can see, look, yes, it's Melbourne, but he's got a great win percentage when he has played. Can do it all, basically. He can kick, he can run the football really well. Great organizer as well. Look, he's probably going to be running the ball a bit more often with Mitchell Moses as his halves partner, but that I do not believe is out of Jonah Pezzett's realm. I think he can do that. He can goal kick as well. If now with Lomax not there, it's either going to be Moses or Pezzett doing the goal kicking. I just think from what I'm seeing, I think that this is going to be a really good stepping stone for Jonah Pezzett this season to the next 3 years or next 4 years that he's got coming up his 3-year deal with the Broncos. Just more so, just his future. I think we're going to see Pezzett really prove that he is a player that deserves to be in the NRL on a regular basis, playing week to week. And I think his partnership, you can see that the chemistry with Mitchell Moses is there for all to see in this preseason. Looks like they're getting on like two peas in a pod. So if that combination can really flourish, I really see Jonah Pezzett having a very, very good 2026 with the Parramatta Eels. And look, breaking out in the aspect of that he will be a regular first grader for the rest of his career.
Yep, 100%, mate.
All right. I will move now to your breakout player. And look, he's not even pictured. That is
nobody's breaking out in for me.
Absolutely marvelous. You can talk about him, Sam. It is Jordan Samrani. Give us some thoughts on him while I try to fix what's happened here.
No, you're right, mate. Yeah, so you might have guessed it because I had Jordan Samrani sticking out on the wing, and I thought for a young man who made his debut in 2025, his versatility was exceptional, and he just seemed to improve with every single game. And the boys seemed to get around him in the couple of instances where he did score a try. He is a winger, but he's got the body frame to be a second rower, and that's where he did play a couple of times throughout 2025, and I could not have been any more impressed by Jordan Samrani. Yes, he needs to, work on his defense and whatnot, but he's still young, and that will come over time. And Jordan Samrani I think he was named in the same 17, maybe for the final 8 weeks in a row sort of thing. So Jason Riles has got a bit of a rap on him as well. I thought Samrani was a full-hearted player, and I think he could become a fan favourite for the Parramatta Eels if he does start in the 1 to 17. But he's going to give it a red hot crack wherever he plays, man. Whatever position he's in, he's going to give it a red hot crack, and I have full confidence in him. I was really, really impressed by what Jordan Samrani did in his debut campaign.
That is very fair, Sam. And look, 13 games played for Jordan Samrani in 2025. Look, averaging around like 80 odd run meters as well. But look, he was basically playing, off the bench. He wasn't really given much security or stability from Jason Riles in 2025. But what he did get was an opportunity, and he was great in that opportunity. So, look, yeah, if what you've put forward, and yep, Samrani, as you can see, finally now pictured next to Ryder Taulangi, gets that opportunity. Yeah, I'm with you 110%, bro. I think he can definitely do a job for the Parramatta Eels in 2026 and can really, establish himself as like a bit like Pezzett as a regular first grader who deserves to be playing in the 1 to 13 on a weekly basis. Like you said, big body, nice and tall. It'll be a good, a blanket to basically bounce off for Parramatta in regards of, they've got another tall player that they can kick out to. I'm sure he's working hard on his aerial ability. Look, will he be Zach Lomax? No, he's not going to be Zach Lomax. But if he can really dominate in the air and look at that body, he's definitely going to be able to make some meters from the back for Parramatta. So I really like it, mate. I think it's a really good, solid choice for a breakout player. All right, new kits. The new kit for the Parramatta Eels for 2026, as you can see, front and center, Sam. What are your thoughts, mate? A bit of a Pac-Man theme, it looks like, bro.
It's the only thing different from what I see, mate. There's a Pac-Man theme, mate. I like the away strip. I really like that they've gone majorly yellow with their away strip instead of the white one that they used for a very long time. I don't mind it. I like that they've decided to, over the years, get a little bit closer to the 80s style of Parramatta jerseys. So yeah, I like it. I don't dislike either of them, mate.
Yeah, I agree with that. The take that you just said there, Sam, getting back to, the 80s type versions. I especially see that there with that away kit, that full yellow away kit, and then like the stripes and the sponsor um integration there as well into the jersey. I think it's a really clean strip, which look, yeah, very Parramatta. I don't hate it. Do I love it? Or I don't really love it. I think it's just a good home and away strip for the Parramatta Eels. And look, hopefully for their fans, they can really do a job in those jerseys this season, man. All right, let's wrap it up with our 2026 ladder predictions, my friend. Uh, Unfortunately, we have both gone the same. I was considering very, very deeply with how they finished last year. Sam and I have touched on length and the side that they've got. I just couldn't find them in my top eight. I think that they're going to be very close to finals football this year. And look, yes, this is only a prediction. They can play finals football. But for me, I just think that there's a few too many. There's eight better teams, in my opinion, that I can say that I think will finish higher just due to 25 form as well as the strength of list that I've seen from these teams, or the strength of their roster. So yeah, I'm 9 to 13, but I'm more towards the 9 than I am the 13. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And what stings about this is if Zach Lomax was still a part of Parramatta, I would probably have them as 6th to 8th sort of thing. But as it is right now, I am going to, if people want more of a finer point on it, I would say that Parramatta finish about 10th this year. So a cog of an improvement this season. But, combinations take a really long time. Talon Silva and Riley Smith are still young, but very, very, very talented. And it remains to be seen that Junior Polo can replicate what he did in 2025 or in 2026, that what he did in 2025. And the same goes with Isaiah Yongi as well. He is going to be a seriously marked man in 2026. He doesn't have the element of surprise in his back pocket that he did in 2025. He's going to be under immense pressure as well. I guess the back row, like Jack Williams, is a strong player. Katoga had a good 2 months, and that's really all we know of him, all we've seen of him. So I am just a little bit, I don't know, a little bit shaky on the edges for Parramatta Eels, despite Jack Williams still being a really solid player. I really like the work that he gets through. And as you said, they're missing a big frame. They're missing a huge forward to come off of the bench, and Jack DeBellin does it admirably. Sam Tuivasa is a big frame, but he's still inexperienced. So, I'd say that their forward pack is lacking just a fraction in both the edges and in the middle. And then that back line, Kelly and Adokar I've gone for, and then Sam Rani and Penasini, combinations galore. The fact that their opening 5 weeks is intense, is really intense. It's not a good way to start a season when you're trying to get combinations all synced up together. So I think maybe they could go 5-0. I don't friggin' know, but I just feel like that maybe they might drop a couple of games too many at the start of the season to just miss out on the top 8. But they're building so beautifully, mate. They're building to a serious push, I'd say, in 2027. And hey, if they make the top 8 this year, even better. But I think this year, I think you should probably just enjoy your footy as much as you can with Parramatta, whether or not they make the top 8. It's in 2027 and then 2028 is when you really need to start knocking on the door saying, hey, it's time. It's time for a premiership. But I think this year, I think they just miss out of the top 8 and finish at about 10th.
Yeah, I completely agree, Sam. And I think the whole, if we look back at the last hour or so of our discussion and we think about what have we spoken of length about in this podcast, I think it's of that Parramatta's youth. And I think that is, and they're building. I think this is again another building or a step in the right direction, building for, like you said, success in a couple of years' time. When these, players that have only played, well, not even a full NRL season have now, played close to nearly 2 years or a year and a half, or maybe just a full whole NRL season, will really start to develop and become fine young players and complement each other. They might be able to get a few signings and whatnot. I feel like the only thing that the uncertainty for Parramatta, if you're looking forward, I guess, is just who their six is going to be after this season. Everything else is pretty much looking very much set in stone, apart from maybe Junior Barlow if he extends his time with Parramatta. But everything else I'm really liking with the Eels. They've got a great youth, and I think that look, while they're not gonna, in Sam and I's opinion, get to the top 8 this season, there will be a slight improvement. Even though yes, they did finish 11th. I think like you said, Sam, enjoy your footy, Eels fans. I think you can make the 8. I just had a few too many teams just above you, unfortunately, but I think it's going to be a great year. And look, like I said, building towards something special in a few years' time, I think is the whole basically review of this podcast. Is the Parramatta Eels are building towards something special. Yet, yes, it might not be in 2026. But boy, just enjoy this ride, because there could be something very special coming to Parramatta, which they haven't had in a very long time. So on that, I've got nothing more. Sam, have you got anything that you'd like to say, mate?
Jason Riles had a torrid start to 2025, and I think, like everybody, really impressed by Jason Riles. That's the other thing too to take away, that he did really well, and you could see a change halfway through 2025 in the Parramatta players that made me believe that they've bought into what Jason Riles is trying to do here, and they played different, a different kind of toughness to what they did over the previous years. Man, they were full of heart, full of commitment. It wasn't there in the first half of the campaign, but in that second half of the season, they played with so much ticker, and their attack was at times brilliant. I'm really excited to see how Parramatta Eels go in 2026, Dor.
Yeah, Jason Riles doing an outstanding job with the Parramatta Eels. Look, that will do us for this episode 3. The Parramatta Eels. Episode 4 will be coming out soon. Look, again, I'm going to keep it a nice secret. You'll have to wait and see who episode 4 is. Keeping it nice and keeping you on your toes, ladies and gentlemen, with who or what team is coming next. So basically, stay tuned. Your team or your club, your team that you want to see at the top could be coming up next on the next episode. Otherwise, last things is just, make sure, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to Wobble and Jaw Sports and the All Out Club. If you haven't done so, you can follow All Out NRL Fantasy on Instagram, or basically all social media platforms. Same with the All Out Club, but the All Out NRL Fantasy, even though it is the All Out Club that we are doing this under the YouTube, All Out NRL is where we do all our NRL stuff. All our clubs, just the sporting home where we cover all other sports. So feel free to do both. But if you're really strict for the NRL content, follow the All Out NRL Fantasy on socials. And yes, do the same for Wobble and Jaw Sports on all social media platforms as well.
Thanks, guys.
Otherwise, thank you so much, Sam. We will see you in episode 4. Thank you so much. We'll see you then. Bye.